The art of the comeback. Trump now does a stunning strategic masterstroke, and the stock market roars. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, what a 24 hours it's been, since last you and I spoke together. Look, since yesterday's show, very dramatic events now have taken place. It is clearly now an historic geopolitical watershed. The world changed yesterday. And with the grace of God, fingers crossed, changed for the better. So here is exactly now what has happened. Donald Trump spoke to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, as well as Elon Musk and other advisors. And they said it's time now to really drop the hammer on China. And so what Trump did was straight out of Art of the Deal. He gave himself maximum leverage, and then he went for China's throat. He implemented an across-the-board 90-day pause on all of his reciprocal tariffs. So all of these tariffs that we're going to hit, Canada, Mexico, the European Union, Japan, pick your country. He's given them now a 90-day pause so they can all renegotiate much better terms that will benefit the United States. A 10% baseline tariff is going to continue. So no matter what, that 10% is not going anywhere. So the United States is going to have better trading relations, lower trade deficits. It is going to equal the playing field, level the playing field. 10% now is going to be there. But outside of that 10%, countries now have 90 days to renegotiate much better terms, except for one country. And that, of course, is Communist China. China retaliated. China kept retaliating. It wouldn't stop retaliating. And remember what Trump said early on in this so-called trade war. He said, I'm warning everybody, don't retaliate. Now we know who are our friends and who are our mortal enemies. And Trump now completely exposed China for the predatory nation that it is. And so he is now imposing crushing, and I mean crushing, 125% tariff on all Chinese goods, all Chinese products. As you and I speak right now, Trump has done something that Beijing never thought could be done. He has isolated China completely on the world stage. He asked the world a fundamental question when it came to trade. Are you with us or are you with China? Do you want to trade with us or do you want to trade with Beijing? And the world resoundingly said, America. And so Trump now, over the next 90 days, is going to be cutting deal after deal after deal through his Treasury Secretary, through his Commerce Secretary, through his trade representative, through his entire trade team. Deals with Vietnam, deals with South Korea, deals with Australia, deals with Malaysia, deals with Japan. They are going to encircle and isolate China. China now is alone. And it's got a trade war with the United States. It can't win. In fact, to show you how bad things are now with China, many of their containers on these ships going across the Pacific towards the United States literally turned around and were sent back to their ports in Beijing. There's no point. With 125% tariff, the American market is now closed to all Chinese goods and products. China's economy is reeling. As I said yesterday, and it bears repeating, They've had a huge property market crisis. They're over-leveraged. They've got high levels of debt, massive high youth unemployment. They've got serious economic problems. The only thing that was driving their economy now, the only engine left, were exports, primarily to our country. Cheap goods being dumped into the United States. Without 125% tariff, they're not going to be cheap anymore. Nobody will buy them. They will be way too expensive. He has now cut China off at the economic knees. And if you don't buy Chinese, and if you don't buy their products, they can't fund their military, which means the entire system is about to collapse in China. And as I said on X, and I want to repeat it, Ronald Reagan's great achievement was that he brought down the Soviet Empire without firing a shot, through a massive military buildup and huge economic pressure on the Soviets. Donald Trump now, with this trade war escalating and a huge trade war with China, is on the verge of bringing down communist China without firing a shot. We are now watching, God willing, Reagan 2.0. The world now is siding with the United States. Trump is now ready to cut a deal with countries after country after country. Nearly 100 countries are beating down our door to sign better trade relations with the United States. China now is alone and holding the bag. In fact, it is so bad, listen to this, that companies now want to leave China and relocate to Vietnam or Malaysia or Thailand or Japan or even here in the United States. They want to leave China and they want to invest and relocate and build factories and plants in other countries, even here, because China now is the wrong place to do business with. For years, and they have no one to blame but themselves, Communist China has broken every trading rule. They have been stealing our technology, stealing the world's technology. They have been cheating nonstop. They have been abusing every trading partner. They have broken every trading rule and regulation. And now the Chinese are going to be left with the consequences of their behavior of the last 25 years. Nobody wants to do business with China. They want to do business with us. China is alone. Trump is now creating a massive trading bloc aimed at isolating and containing China. My friends, it is an incredible masterstroke, a strategic act of genius on his part, and the results were incredible, historic. Yesterday, the stock market roared nearly 3,000 points. Almost all of the losses of the past week were made up in one day. The Nasdaq boomed 12%. The S&P 500, almost 10%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, nearly 8%. It was an historic turnaround and an historic rebound. So, everybody out there who was complaining to the Kuhner man, Jeff, my 401k, it's going down, it's going into the toilet. Not anymore. Your 401k is looking a hell of a lot better this morning. And it now appears that the stock market is going to continue to boom. And Trump warned everybody. Remember, he said it a day ago. He said, my advice to you, wink, wink, something big is going to happen. It's going to be very good. Buy now. Buy now. Stock market was low. Time to buy was now. and now it's high again. You're going to make a lot of money. Well, if you listen to him, you're rich. If you didn't listen to him, well, it's still getting better. The fact of the matter is now, what Trump has done is he has now given every country in the world a 90-day reprieve to come to the table, renegotiate with the United States. This is going to benefit us. They're going to all lower their tariffs against American products. This is going to boost American business, American exports, American manufacturing, American trade, and Trump is going to encourage many of them to start investing in the United States here. It's going to be win-win. The only loser is communist China. And so now, as you and I speak, as this is taking place, we are now engaged in a high-stakes showdown between the world's two largest economies. And Trump has now turned the world with the United States against communist China. Art of the deal, baby. Leverage, pressure. He's going to break China's back. Art of the deal, baby. 617-266-6868 is the number. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, Trump does it. An incredible move on his part. Really took the world by surprise. Took many, even within his own administration, many Republicans by surprise. But he baited the Chinese. In a nutshell, I'm going to play certain cuts, but this was the strategy all along. Trump was playing the long game. He wanted to flush out who are true friends and allies, who are real enemies. And ultimately, he wanted to bait China into massive retaliatory action, and that China would show itself to be the predatory country that it is. And he did. And now the entire world on trade, on the economy, is completely united against China and with the United States. Listen now to President Trump announcing, this was about late morning, early afternoon, a 90-day pause on tariffs for about 100 countries around the world. Now, again, I want to stress this. The 10% baseline tariff is there. So from this point on, everyone's going to have to pay 10%, which is going to benefit us tremendously. But the 25%, the 30%, the 40% that many were expecting to pay as we reciprocate our tariffs against what they've been tariffing us, that has been put on a pause, basically on hold, and to see if they can negotiate better terms that benefits both sides. As I speak to you now, I'm not kidding. It's like planes on a runway. Japan is sending their delegation. South Korea is sending their delegation. Vietnam is sending their delegation. India is sending their delegation. The Europeans are sending their delegation. Great Britain is sending their delegation. Most of the world now is lining up outside the door saying, let's cut a deal. Okay, Donald? We don't want to, in other words, we don't want to get hit with the high tariffs that you put on us for about a week. We can see how far you're willing to go. We don't want to be hit by that again. So, again, art of the deal, maximum pressure, maximize your leveraging position. So, okay, we get your message. You're serious. You're not playing around anymore. So we are going to lower our tariffs substantially on all American goods and products if you're going to continue to allow us to have access to the American market at a lower tariff rate than what you were willing to hit us just a week ago. It's genius. I'm telling you, it's absolute genius. So as the world is lining up to trade with us, China now is stuck fighting a one-country trade war against us, and in many ways against now the entire world, because the world is cutting deals with us. Nobody's cutting a deal with China. Xi Jinping screwed himself and screwed China. And now he's locked in to a prolonged trade war with the United States that I don't believe they can win. Time will tell. We shall see. But as things stand right now, Trump now has the world in his corner and he has China on the ropes. Listen now to Trump making his historic announcement. There will be a 90-day pause on tariffs. He said Wall Street was getting too uneasy. A lot of people were calling me up. They were getting a little bit too nervous. So I said, okay, I'll give everybody one last chance. You've got 3 months. You want to negotiate? Now is the time to get a good deal while you can. But one country, there will be no deal. I'm raising it from 104% to 125%. We are now going to crush China with one of the biggest tariffs ever. Roll cut 1, Mike.
Why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know. They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions, because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents. They wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, you know, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also, but somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable.
He's completely right. In other words, look, we had to renegotiate these deals because all these countries were ripping us off. We were running in total trillions and trillions in trade deficits. The Chinese are the biggest abusers. They really take us to the cleaners. Okay, but you know, Japan, Canada, Mexico, the European Union, I could go, India, you can go, we're constantly running massive trade deficits with them. And in plain English, trillions of dollars of our money is constantly being, and jobs, and factories, and manufacturing, and our industry, and our supply chains are constantly being outsourced to all these countries around the world. And so Trump said, look, we're going to be done. This whole house of cards is going to collapse if I don't turn things around now. So he was willing to take on the world in terms of a trade war or tariff war, knowing full well that our market is the most coveted market in the world because we have wealthy consumers, a big, strong country that buys a lot of products, that the world ultimately would be willing to put water in their wine to be able to continue trading with us, and knowing that the Chinese would massively overreact. That the communists, the CCP, because they're a bunch of thugs and bullies, and cheaters and liars, and frankly, thieves. And so that they would react the way that they reacted, which is in anger, lashing out, massive retaliatory tariffs, launching an all-out trade war with the United States. And so Trump said, okay, a 90-day pause for 100 countries, but not you, communist China. You're going to get hit with 125%. This is the ultimate art of the deal, a strategic masterstroke. And the stock market, holy shamoly, an historic day yesterday. It rocketed back. Did Trump make the right move? Your calls next. 6:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull baby. All right, massive win for Donald Trump. This is now going to go down into history books, what developed yesterday. There's no question about it. And many of you are asking the ultimate question. This is from 603. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is 603. Jeff, So I have to ask the $64,000 question. And I'll leave it at this. So does this mean our beloved Grace, your wife, the self-proclaimed worrywart, is done wringing her hands? I hope so. That's what I was telling her yesterday. I'm like, you were worried. You were like a nervous Nelly. This is going to lead to a recession. This is going to lead to a massive defeat in the midterms. The stock market is going to tank. This is going to be the end of the world. And I kept saying the whole time, relax. Relax. It's just a few days in. Take it easy. Take it easy. And anyway, so I hope the panic at the house. Let's put it this way. It was a nice dinner last night. It was a calm dinner. It wasn't oh my God, the stock market, a recession. I didn't vote for this. Okay, everything is going to turn out. Okay, just trust in the Kuhner man. And that's what I said to Grace. I said, how many times do I have to be right? How many times do I have to tell you, take it easy? Trump's got this. We've got this. So listen now to President Trump saying, after he made his announcement, and of course the stock market immediately started to rebound. It was the mother of all rallies. Wasn't just the Dow Jones. It was the high-tech stocks as well, the NASDAQ, S&P 500, across the board. It was a market rally, as Wall Street would call it, one for the ages. Listen now to Trump, reacting now to the stock market booming again. Roll cut to Mike. All right, I think we're having some technical issues, but hopefully Mike can resolve it. All right, you got it. You fixed it, Mike? Great. All right, go ahead. Shoot.
You got the market seeing your brilliance.
Yeah, that's up almost 7 points. 2,500 points. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's got to be a record.
Amazing. Yeah. You make an announcement next time. Yes, sir. Smart.
So he was just saying market's up 2,500 points. That's got to be a record. No one's ever heard of that. By the way, it was an incredible, historic. It ended up being almost 2,900, almost 3,000 points. I mean, this is unheard of, absolutely unheard of. So clearly now, people now realize that there's a plan. And that the plan was brilliantly executed. Let me just read this from Bill Ackman, and then I want to go to the phones. 617-266-6868. What's your reaction to what happened yesterday? Has it allayed your concerns or anxieties about the tariffs? And do you think Trump deserves now credit for an absolute strategic masterstroke? I do. I want to hear from you. Couple lines are available. 617-266-6868. Bill Ackman, one of the top Wall Street people out there, came out with a statement saying that this was textbook, his words, art of the deal. An absolute strategic masterstroke by Trump. He said he executed it perfectly to a T. And what he's now done is he has the entire world, lining up to cut better trade deals, have better trade terms with the United States. And China stands alone in a trade war that I don't believe it can win. And what he's also done, let me just make this final point before I go to the phone lines, is he has come as close as we've ever come in the last 30 years to decoupling America's economy with China's economy. That's what Trump has done. Think of a very dependent relationship where we were depending on China for so much because we had outsourced our pharmaceuticals to China, so much of our manufacturing to China, so much of our supply chains to China. In fact, China was even now making critical components for our own military. That's how reckless and irresponsible we had become over the last 30, 35 years. What Trump has now done is he has come as close to severing, decoupling our entire economic ties and relationship with China. And the problem now is the Chinese, their whole economy is based on dumping cheap products and cheap goods. Well, if they don't have the American market, who's going to absorb all of this? And the Indians don't want it because they don't like China. The Vietnamese, the Australians, the Japanese, I could go on and on. Most of these, South Korea, they don't want to be dependent upon China either. So you see what's happening is it's not just that we're imposing high tariffs on China. The rest of the world is joining us in putting high tariffs on China. Because now they don't want to see their country be overwhelmed with cheap goods and cheap products, which will destroy their jobs and their factories. Because you can't make anything because the Chinese products are coming in so underpriced that everything else. Because they manipulate their currency, they illegally subsidize their products and their companies. They steal our technology, the best technology, and then just clone it or copy it and then sell it back to us at a much cheaper rate. So China now is encircled. There's almost like a ring of countries around China. And now it's got to stand toe to toe with the United States. And yet we don't need them. They need us. Now, the only downside to this, and Grace was again quick to remind me of this at dinner last night, but it's true. She's not the only one saying this. Many people are saying this. Privately, many top administration officials are saying this. China now has been humiliated. Xi has been publicly rebuked on the global stage. They have badly miscalculated. Their bullying and thuggishness, their retaliation, their belligerence is now blown up in their face. What will China do? How will China react? Will they unleash another global pandemic like they did with COVID at the Wuhan lab? Will they blockade Taiwan? Will they try to invade Taiwan? To punish the world, to blackmail the world, saying if you don't want us to invade this country or unleash another bioweapons attack, you better all start dropping your tariffs against us. Or, even more importantly, to distract the angry Chinese people who are going to look at the Chinese Communist Party and said, how could you have done this to us? You're crashing our economy because of your arrogance and stupidity. Take it easy, baby. That's what I kept telling Grace yesterday. Take it easy. Trump's in control. Don't worry. It's the art of the deal. 650 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, in an absolute move for the history textbooks, Donald Trump does a complete jiu-jitsu move on communist China, a 90-day pause for nearly 100 countries on his tariffs, but for China, a 125% crushing tariff. China now stands alone. The rest of the world, they're lining up to renegotiate. Do you like Trump's strategy? Do you think it was the strategy the whole time? And are you now feeling better about the stock market, about the economy, and about the Trump presidency? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, super quick. This is Mark on Messenger. And I think he hit the nail right on the head. Jeff, I told you yesterday that China would regret messing around with Donald Trump. This was the ultimate art of the deal. The way he played rope-a-dope with China, sort of like in boxing, it was Rocky Balboa in Rocky 3 versus Clubber Lang. Absolutely freaking genius. He sucked them in, then he unloaded punch after punch, and then the final right hook. Absolutely, you're right. He's isolating China from the rest of the world. Donald Trump said somebody had to do it, and he is the only president with the balls big enough, and he actually did it. It was an absolutely brilliant plan, and it worked. So all you snowflakes out there can stop panicking about the stock market now. In Donald Trump, we trust. Well, look, I got to tell you, he's got to look. We're not out of the woods yet. We got to renegotiate these deals. They got to be done well. They got to be done properly. They've got 90 days to do it. I think they will, but I'm just saying, we still have a couple more rounds to go in this, to use your boxing match analogy, Mark. And he's got to hold the line now on China. He said it. We're going to make a deal with China. In the end, we're not going to be at perpetual economic war with them, but they're going to have to cry uncle. Xi is going to have to come begging at Trump's door. And this time, we're going to do a deal with China where they're not able to take advantage of us or, frankly, the world anymore. If Trump pulls this off, I'm telling you, this is Ronald Reagan all over again. Agree, disagree, lines are loaded. Susie in Carlisle, you're going to kick us off, Susie. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Susie.
Good morning, Kuhner Country. Hi. So we, the people, need to remember that we had a gut feeling. We saw something very wrong with the last administration. We, the people, elected President Trump. We need to trust him. We need to let him work his magic. We also need to remember that in the 1770s, only 3% of the entire population of the new colonies have rose up against tyranny. We need to stick together on this, and we need to trust that we made the right decision in voting for President Trump. His administration is phenomenal. They're doing all kinds of wonderful, it's an amazing turnaround from what we had. One big point that I would really like to make, the stock market is dominated by the world economic global elite. And what we saw here was the global elites, they were retaliating because, first of all, they're angry that we, the people, have the audacity to stand up for ourselves and elect somebody that was going to have our best interests at heart and in mind. And he is going to do everything for we, the people, for the United States. We need to support President Trump. We need to not panic, not buy into the panic porn, not get hysterical, not listen to the hysteria around us. And we need to be unified. We need to stay unified. People are nervous. I totally get that. But what you saw happen with the stock market, this was like the global elites who their ultimate goal is to have a one world order. We're the United States. We're Americans. We are independent. We don't want part of that global elite world. And if that global elite world would not work for us.
No, it's aimed directly against us. No, look, Susie, I wish, I've been saying this now for a couple days, so let me just continue with the analogy one more day. I wish you were with me at dinner with my wife. Because you sound exactly like me. So it wouldn't be 3-on-1 all the time, Grace and the 2 kids against me. I said, look, don't panic. Can't you see the media is trying to generate hysteria? They've done it in the past over and over and over. They did it with Russia collusion. They did it with COVID. They did it with January 6th. I kept saying this. I said, look, Wall Street, the rich and the wealthy, the globalist elites on Wall Street are trying to punish Trump. That's what they're trying to do. Because he's now reordering not just world trade, but the American economy. He's doing something that he's undoing the last 30 years. And he's reordering now the American economy into a pro-working class, pro-worker, pro-middle class, pro-America, frankly, pro-manufacturing economy. He wants the economy to work for Main Street, not Wall Street. There's a fundamental difference between the two. So I said, don't worry. And the other thing, Susie, now look, everybody's calm because the markets now are roaring again. Okay, so everything is calm. The talk of recession is over. The talk of an economic slowdown is over. Okay, it's all changed in 24 hours. So everybody's like breathing, sighing, sigh of relief. But, I said this to Grace even last night. I said, look, just objectively, how were you hurt and how were we hurt as a family in the last 10 days? And full disclosure, I have no money in the stock market. I know I should. Everybody tells me I should get a 401k and have the 401k invested in the stock market. We invest in real estate. We've done other investments, but we don't have money in the stock market. I don't. Okay. So I have nothing invested in the stock market. Zero, absolutely zero. So I said to her, it's just numbers on a screen. What you're doing is you're watching Fox Business, or you're watching Fox or CNN or CNBC or Bloomberg, and you're like, oh my God. But it's just numbers on a screen. I said, look, have prices gone up? No. Have groceries gone up? No. Has food gone up? No. Has gas gone up? No. Have any of our bills gone? I mean, energy costs are very high, but that has nothing to do with what happened over the last week. That's Maura Healey. And by the way, we're going to discuss this at 9:30. You're not going to believe what she's planning to do to this state on the energy front. I've got Paul Craney on from Mass Fiscal Alliance. You got to hear it to believe it. Okay. So that's today in about 2.5 hours, 9:30. Okay. But let that go. So I said, we're not feeling anything. There's nothing bad happening in our lives. Not one thing has gone up. In fact, eggs have gone down. Groceries are starting to go down. Interest rates are going down. We had an incredible jobs report the last month. 228,000 new jobs created. That was 100,000 more than they were expecting. The month before that, inflation went down. So I said, it's all in the mind. It's like psychological warfare. It's all in the mind. So they're making you uneasy. They're making you uncertain. They're making you nervous. But tangibly, nothing is going wrong in your life. And I said this. I'm telling you, this is 60 years. The market goes up. The market goes down. And then it goes back up. Relax. And, and Trump, look, again, he said it and he was right. He goes, I'm telling you, buy now. When the market drops like this, as I'm telling you, as a billionaire, buy now. Now, buy. You're going to make money because the market will go back up. I'm telling you. So everything what you're saying, Susie, is not 100%. It's 1,000% correct. Now, look, I just got to say this because this is what I've been thinking now the last 7 to 10 days, especially the last couple days. When I was doing my graduate work, my PhD coursework at Ohio University, okay, long story short, one of my professors, he's now retired, God bless him, Professor Charles Alexander, you can look him up. He has written he wrote the definitive biography on Eisenhower, political biography. He's one of the top political intellectual historians in the United States. He also, by the way, at the end of his life said to hell with it. He was a big baseball guy and wrote some phenomenal biographies of Ty Cobb. And so he made a real name for himself as a baseball historian. But really his meat and potatoes, where he cut his teeth, was Eisenhower, the New Deal, Franklin Roosevelt, basically the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. Long story short, when I was his graduate student, I'll never forget what he told me. He volunteered this on his own. We were studying Eisenhower. We were studying his generalship during World War II. And then he just said to me out of the blue, as I'm taking notes, as he's lecturing, he said, and this was in the mid-1990s. This is 30 years ago. He said, we could never win World War II if we had to fight it today. I was shocked. I was like, what? He goes, no, I'm just telling you. I said, Professor Alexander, actually doctor, I called him Dr. Alexander. Why would you say that? He goes, oh, I'm just telling you, Americans now have changed as a people. We want everything now. It's a me culture. People have become very selfish. He goes, there was rationing during World War II. Rationing for food, rationing for tires, rationing for gas, he goes, Americans had to make immense sacrifices, personal sacrifices. And I don't mean for a day or for a week. He said they had to make sacrifices literally for years to win that war. Many people ate 2 meals a day and they gone hungry during the Great Depression. But part of rationing was we have to maximize military production, armaments, tanks, machine guns, jeeps, planes. So the consumer side, there wasn't much. And so they made, they did without. And he said today, no. He says Americans wouldn't last 1 week. He goes, honestly, I don't think they could last 48 hours. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is not to put down Americans. I love Americans, as you know. But I remember that always stood with me. And it bothered me. It really bothered me because I'm thinking, well, if we can't fight World War II again, I think our enemies can. And I don't want us to lose. I believe in the free world. I believe in the West. I believe in America. So fast forward 30 years. Honest to God, that's what I'm thinking the last week, 10 days. I'm thinking Dr. Alexander, Professor Charles Alexander, and his warning. And that was 30 years ago. And really, I'm like, we haven't rationed one meal. We haven't paid a higher price on anything with this so-called trade war. The shelves are full. Everything is full. So it's just the pain of watching CNN or Fox or whatever. The pain of them telling us this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And, in a way I feel bad for Trump because I think, frankly, he would have gone even further. He would have had this go even longer to just, knock out China, to use the basketball, the boxing analogy. Just deliver a decisive knockout blow. So, and it's like 1 week and everybody's panicking. 1 week, my phone's ringing off the hook. My commerce secretary's losing his mind. My treasury secretary's losing his mind. My trade rep is losing his mind. Half my base is starting to betray me. I've got, people are panicking left, right, and center. And I'm just 7 days in. And so I love my wife to death. Don't get me wrong. But if my wife can't stand a bad stock market for a week and the prospect, and again, it was just a prospect of a recession, months from now, just in her head, it makes her too uneasy. She's unsettled. She's unnerved. She doesn't like it. It's upsetting. It's disconcerting. She doesn't sleep well at night. I'm like, how would we ever refight World War II? Dr. Charles Alexander, Professor Alexander, was completely correct. I'm just being honest with all of you. Susie, am I wrong?
No, I agree. We need to be rational. We need to be understanding. Look at how many years it took to bring us to this point where we're all looking around saying, this is wrong. Something is drastically wrong. It needs to be fixed. It's not going to be fixed overnight, and we have to be patient. And again, here's the thing that a lot of people need to understand. The global elites are the ones that want to control the world. That's why they're called the global elites. We, as a nation, don't accept that, and we shouldn't accept that. We believe in freedom. We believe in a lot of things the global elites don't. The global elites want communism and a one world order. That's not the American way.
Well, you nailed it. And Susie, look, they made a fatal bet now. See, that's why this is historic on so many levels. Because the globalist elites, as you point them out, the Bill Gates of the world. By the way, I think Zuckerberg now is in big trouble. Zuckerberg's in huge trouble. There's a whistleblower. I'm going to talk about this probably tomorrow or early next week. There is a whistleblower now at Meta, okay, the company, the corporation that owns Facebook, that is now coming out and saying, if she can prove it, and I think she can, he's in big trouble. To get into the Chinese market, and this is what the Chinese do, this is what I'm talking about, this is how evil and diabolical they are. They had Zuckerberg hand over to the communist Chinese regime the leading American AI technology. AI, artificial intelligence, which many people say is the race for the economic future. He handed it over to them, our leading, most cutting-edge AI technology, which China then is using and now cloning and copying. That's economic treason, my friend. If true, that's what a whistleblower now claims. Now, this is just an example. Whether it's Zuckerberg, whether it's Jeff Bezos, whether it's Bill Gates, whether it's George Soros, whether it's Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, they made their bed with communist China. They want a new world order. They want a globalist system with China at the epicenter. China was going to be the future. China was going to be the new Roman Empire. So they had to destroy America to make way for the rise, the economic, military, geopolitical rise of China. Trump now is destroying their entire plan. He wins this trade war. It's a tariff trade economic war with China. And if he breaks their economic back, as he's now on the cusp of doing, the Chinese regime will collapse. It will crater like the Soviet Union. And then their plans are finished. So that's why this battle between Trump and the elites is ultimately not just a spiritual or moral battle. It is literally a battle for whose destiny will determine the future of the world. Will it be America and the free world, or will it be communist China and the globalists? And the one thing we must remember, the Democrat Party sides with China. They side with China because they side with the globalists. And so what to me is most disgusting of all is that throughout this entire battle, and you're seeing it now, the Democrats have openly taken the side of our number one enemy, foe, and adversary, China. They're rooting for China. They're protecting China. They're siding with China. Adam Schiff is, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, who's bought and paid for, Obama, Schumer, Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries. There's no question about it. Liberals across the country are rooting for China to defeat Trump and America in this trade war. Now, take it for what it's worth. The longer this trade war now goes on, it's really now no longer us and anybody else. It's us and China. That's it. It's a high stakes showdown and confrontation. In about a week, you watch on X or on Facebook or whatever. You're good. Remember the Ukrainian flag in all of their like personal bios? You're going to see the Chinese flag now in liberal Facebook accounts, liberal X accounts, everywhere. Everywhere. They're traitors. They're traitors. And Trump has now smoked and exposed them all out. He smoked them out and he's exposed them. Agree, disagree, all of your calls. Next. On the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. If you want to be part of the show, let me just ask you this. Because this is something that I can't wrap my mind around. And I haven't been able to really for the last 4 or 5 years, ever since the so-called the scamdemic, the so-called pandemic. Why would we in the United States, but I'm talking about even the world, the West especially, but why would we in the United States want to trade with communist China after what they did to us regarding COVID? Really, objectively, this is a country that released a biological weapon. That's what it was. It was manufactured, fabricated, a super virus in a lab in Wuhan, and they released it to the entire world deliberately. And it resulted in millions of people dead. They lied about it. Xi Jinping, that butcher, who runs that country, that communist strongman, lied about it, systematically covered it up, and didn't bat an eye as he knowingly allowed infected people to fly from China, from Beijing, from Shanghai, they flew to Australia, they flew to the United States, they flew to Europe, and they spread that virus knowingly all over the world. And then lied about it the entire time. And to add insult to injury, they then tried to maximize money, profit, take economic advantage. Because they sold us the masks. We make so much of our pharmaceuticals now in China. So they try everything that we needed. It doesn't matter. All the precautions that we were taking and we were buying all of this stuff, it was all coming from China. Why would we even want to trade with a country like this? So to be honest with you, yeah, this should have been done 5 years ago, except we had a Chinese, seriously, a puppet, a Chinese agent in the White House who was covering up for them for 4 years, and that was Joe Biden, bought and paid for, along with his entire crime family. And by the way, our intelligence services lied about China's role in COVID. It's all coming out now. Our CIA lied, our FBI lied, our NSA lied. Everybody knew it came from China. They lied. And our media lied to us. They knew it came from China. They knew it came from the lab in Wuhan. They knew it was a bioweapons. And that our own government was implicated, led by Obama, led by Fauci, led by his boss, Francis Collins, in creating this biological weapon. We funded it. We supported it. We aided and abetted this crime. A crime upon humanity. So, to be honest, 125% tariff, to me, that's low. Now, it doesn't matter. They can't sell anything at 125%. But to me, it's 1,000,000%. So, no. And again, nothing against the Chinese people. I mean it. They're against this regime. Never confuse the regime with the people. But the Chinese government, this brutal communist regime in Beijing, they need to be bankrupted and they need to collapse, just like the old Soviet Union. And that's now Trump's clear endgame. And God bless him. God bless him. Agree, disagree. Dave in Walpole. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Dave.
Jeff, is Chinese food gonna... I know your kids love Chinese food. You have to pay more money.
Now, Dave, trust me, your Chinese food's not going up, my friend. You know, that's one of the few things we still make in America, Dave. Dave, I got to ask you, what do you make of Trump's announcement yesterday, his pause, his 90-day pause, his hiatus on all of his reciprocal tariffs? He's still keeping the 10% baseline tariff. That's going to be for every country, no matter what. But nothing more so far beyond that. They're going to renegotiate. But he massively increased the tariff on China, 125%. It's now an open economic trade war with Beijing. The two largest economies now are basically at each other's throats. Are you worried? Are you concerned, Dave?
Jeff, I'm not going to worry about it. You know, when you really think about it, we're working every day, and either way, things are going to go up slowly but surely. But I'm not going to worry about it. Like you said, I don't have no money in the stock market. You know, and the ones who got the money in the stock market, they're the ones who got to worry about it. I mean, if we get to pay a little bit more, luckily things are going down slowly but surely. Gas has gone down somewhat. But it's like, I'm not going to worry about it. You know, Trump knows what he's doing, and he's doing it to get back the money that we've been ripped off in the past 20 years. That's how I see it. He's getting back all the money that we got ripped off on buying cars, buying oil, buying gas, everything else. So, yeah, he's doing the right thing. It's the Democrats who don't want to listen to it, because they know that the Democrats are the ones who's going to find out they're going to have to be paying back everything else.
Well, you know, Dave, I think you put your finger on it. The Democrats are the ones who are yelling, screaming, and stomping, because it's obvious they've been taking money from the communist Chinese for decades. They're on the take. It's so obvious that they're on the take. And you see, this is what Xi Jinping is asking himself right now. We've bribed and bought off all of these politicians in Washington. But the one guy we didn't bribe, because he can't be bought, is the President of the United States, Trump. And he's the one now that just stabbed us in the chest. 7:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, listen now to Trump speaking with reporters just outside the White House, and the reporters were stunned. They did not see this move coming. The 90-day pause for almost every country in the world, at least 100 countries. They're going to renegotiate all their trade deals, but dropping the hammer, the sledgehammer on China, and China now isolated, completely encircled, isolated, effectively holding the bag. Listen now to Trump saying, I told you it's going to take a little time. It's going to be a little bit of transition. It's going to be a little disruptive. But in the end, it's all going to work out. Roll cut 3, Mike.
Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, they've been talking about tariffs for decades. How come when these Democrat elites want tariffs, everything's hunky-dory, but when President Trump wants tariffs, all hell breaks loose? Do you see this double standard?
I love this guy, whoever the hell that is. That's really nice. I appreciate that question. No, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, everybody knew you had to do it, but they never had the guts to do it. It does take guts. It even takes guts for our country to go through it. That's why I say be cool. They were saying about, see, just be cool. It's going to work out. It's going to work out, and it's working out. I can tell you, working out maybe faster than I thought. But I said it's going to take a little conditioning. It's a transition to. I think it's a transition to greatness. It's going to be greatness. Our country is going to be. There'll be nothing like it. and people investing in our country, they're going to do better than they've ever done before.
Here's where things stand right now. Okay? Just so that you understand, the kind of deals that Trump is making. He's got about $5 to $6 trillion now pledged from other countries, foreign companies, foreign investors to invest in manufacturing here in the United States. $5 to $6 trillion. And that's just in the last month. That's going to translate, many economists are now saying, about 10 to 11 million jobs. Good jobs. I'm nothing against flipping hamburgers. Please don't get me wrong. It's nothing. It's an honorable job. Hell, I know a lot of people who got their first or second job at a McDonald's or a Burger King or a Five Guys or whatever. There's nothing wrong with it, but you can't feed a family as a hamburger flipper. So I'm not talking about these low wage service sector jobs that pretty much now is what we have in a lot of our economy. Good paying blue collar, middle class jobs. The kind of jobs we used to have in this country. 10 to 11 million jobs are now going to be created out of just this $5 to $6 trillion investment because of the 10% baseline tariff, because Trump is now willing to renegotiate all of these trade deals, and because now the sucking of our wealth that the communist Chinese have been doing for the last 25 years is now over. It's over. And we're barely 100 days into his presidency. 617-266-6868. Ken in the great state of Georgia. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you this morning?
Very good. Very happy, Ken. Very, very happy.
Yeah, me too. The big thing about yesterday was the bond market prior to Trump announcing his lowering of the 90-day grace period. It showed that a lot of the bonds were bought by international countries, showing that they were being, respectful to Trump's tariff, not disrespecting him. It drove the yield down, which is another thing. Means it drove the price up of bonds. It was high demand. So as soon as he saw that, he said, okay, the people who I talked to are serious about negotiating, so I'm going to, drop their tariffs down to the 10% for 90 days as a safety net. So when we renegotiate, they're still serious about the negotiation. Now, what's killing the Chinese is Xi's hubris. He is so proud because he's done a lot to do these, what they call Silk Road initiatives. He doesn't want to lose that. And he just can't see past his nose on what this might do to his economy. Your thoughts?
Well, you're right. On every front, you're right. It was the bond market that in many ways Trump was looking at that, and then he said, you know what? What I'm seeing is many foreign countries and many foreign investors want to buy American. They want to buy America, and they want to buy into America. So he said, you know what? They're willing to negotiate. I mean, I'm not just seeing the delegations coming in, right? He says, no, the world overall is saying, no, listen, look, we want a better tariff system. We want to level the playing field. In other words, pocket the win. Really, what Trump did in a nutshell, Ken, is pocket the win. In fact, if you don't mind, hang on. I want to play a cut. Because, and Trump kind of telegraphed this. That's why I can't believe the media didn't pick up on it. Listen now to Trump. This was a couple nights ago at the NRCC, the National Republican Campaign Committee dinner. So all the Republicans are there, senators, members of Congress, many governors. I mean, all the political heavy hitters. And he's talking to a room of, powerful politicians. And he's telling them, guys, I don't think you see what I'm seeing. Roll cut 4A, Mike.
I think we're going to do much better than that this time, because this time I'm doing what I want to do with respect to the tariffs. I think we're going to do much better. And just remember the numbers. When you get up to $2 billion a day, $2 billion a day, they're saying, sir, Can't be that, can it? I said, yeah, it can. It's the biggest transaction ever made. This is bigger than any deal. You guys, some of you work for companies. Your companies are peanuts. I don't care how big they are. This is the largest transaction in the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate.
By the way, that shot was against Rand Paul. Just so that you know, Rand Paul has been against Trump on this tariff thing, this trade tariff war from the beginning. He's siding with Canada. He's siding with China, believe it or not. And he's the one saying, no, Congress should be negotiating all this, not Trump. I mean, Rand Paul to me has become an absolute Judas and a real disappointment, okay? But let that go. The larger point is this. He's saying, don't you get it? They're lining up to quote unquote kiss my ass. Everybody wants to make a deal on our terms, on good terms for us. So what Scott Besson told him yesterday was, Donald, pocket the win. Take the win. Take yes for an answer. You've won. You've won. Now, you can't negotiate in 24 hours. You got to have 30 days. Give me 30 days. Give me 3 months. Lutnick will help. The trade rep will help. We'll put a good team together. And almost country by country, one by one, will come out better deal, better deal, better deal. And then who's been our number one enemy? China. Who's been most belligerent? China. The world is betting on us. They're not betting on China. The world wasn't buying Chinese bonds. You see, they weren't saying, "Oh, we're gonna now throw our weight behind China." So you're right. Xi fatally has miscalculated. And you know what they say, Ken? Pride cometh before the fall. It's his arrogance, it's his hubris, it's his pride. And it's going to bring him and, God willing, the entire Chinese Communist Party down. On the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask you, the great audience of Kuhner Country, the poll question today. Okay, the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Yesterday's historic announcement. Do you agree or do you disagree? Do you support President Trump's 90-day tariff pause on every country except China? He paused it for every other country in the world except Communist China. That was the opposite. He increased the tariff to 125%, which is a devastating, crushing tariff. So, A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X. I'm very active. I was, again, very active last night. You can follow me on X, and you can obviously vote on X. My handle, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, KUHN is in national ER. Marilyn in Norwood. Thanks for holding, Marilyn, and welcome.
Jeff, I have some reservations about the president's approach regarding China, and I must say I find that I am probably more aligned or have the same concerns that Grace has privately expressed to you. First of all, I should tell you, I worked in the biotechnology industry and for 20 years was a member of the Japan Society of Boston. So, although I'm not of Japanese heritage, I do have a little more insight into some of the values of the East Asian cultures of Japan, China, and Korea, and perhaps many other countries of the world. Also, some of these values would be more respected. I don't think the president's approach to single out China for this kind of, shall we say, punishment is a good idea, because saving face, showing signs of respect in the East Asian societies are more highly prized at the international level than even in the West. So he may have unintentionally, although his intent is to bring them to the negotiating table, he may have unintentionally offended them and will make them more aggressive. Now, regarding the tariffs that have been imposed on China. At one point yesterday, I heard that it was the 104%. It may have increased since I last listened. Was going to be on most goods, excluding pharmaceuticals. But then later in the day, I heard, unless I was misinformed, that it would include pharmaceuticals, and here lies the problem.
Marilyn, can you do me a small favor? By the way, you're making an excellent point. And I want to return to your original point, because when I worked at the Washington Times, we had a Korean ownership. They were owned by Koreans. So I know exactly what you mean about the face culture and saving face culture, which is so foreign to Americans and frankly Europeans and Westerners. But it's the culture in China, in Japan, in Korea. So you're completely right. But I want to, since you mentioned the pharmaceuticals, so Trump said there's going to be 125% tariff. And as you know, many of our pharmaceuticals that we use are made in China, right? You know this better than anybody. Listen to what Trump said about the pharmaceuticals. So just to back up your point. So please just hold on one second, Marilyn. This is Trump saying, and I'm going to tariff the pharmaceuticals as well. There's going to be no exemptions. Every Chinese product, every Chinese good, anything made in China, they're not going to come, they're not escaping my tariff, which is now going to be 125%. Roll cut 4, Mike.
The drug companies listen to them, but we're going to do something that we have to do. We're going to tariff our pharmaceuticals, and once we do that, they're going to come rushing back into our country because we're the big market. The advantage we have over everybody is that we're the big market. So we're going to be announcing very shortly a major tariff on pharmaceuticals, and when they hear that, they will leave China, they will leave other places because they have to sell. Most of their product is sold here, and they're going to be opening up their plants all over the place in our country. We're going to be announcing that, so that's breaking news. Ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news.
So, Marilyn, just to reinforce what you're saying, when he says our companies or our pharmaceuticals, he means, Pfizer, Moderna, the big pharma companies. So he's really taking it now to big pharma. And he's saying, look, what you're doing here, take insulin, just as an example, okay? Because I use insulin, I'm diabetic, type 2 diabetic. They make the insulin in China cheap because they use very low cost labor, and then they ship it to the United States, basically tariff free. And so our pharmaceutical medical supply chain has effectively been outsourced to China. Trump is saying, I'm going to hit him now with a tariff, even our pharmaceuticals. So it's not going to be cheap anymore. It's going to be very expensive. So they're going to have to come back and make say, insulin, whatever, take your pick, aspirin, whatever. You're going to have to make it here in America. And the reason why, and Marilyn, I want to hear what you have to say, but the reason why Trump is doing this, vital life-saving drugs and just medications that we need for our health. Here, like for me, I need my insulin. Without insulin, my sugar goes right through the roof. He goes, we're so dependent on China, we have to bring this back to the United States. We can't outsource our vital pharmaceutical medical supply chain to another country, but a country that is as hostile to us as Beijing is. So, Marilyn, I've set it up. Please keep going.
Okay, Jeff, thank you. I fully agree that the pharmaceuticals need to be returned to the United States. First and foremost, these companies, U.S., Canadian, and European that outsourced to China years ago primarily did it out of greed because they saw an opportunity to maximize their profits and pay people far less money. And that should never happen. There should be a law that medication has to be produced in friendly countries, in advanced friendly countries, because I have a friend in chemical engineering with ties to MIT, and to this day she will attest that the regulatory standards in drug production in China is variable. And so some companies are manufacturing at the same high levels as here, high standards as here in the U.S. or in Western Europe, and other places are really fly-by-night operations. But my interim concern, until these companies are repatriated to the U.S., they've built their facilities, and their facilities have undergone thorough FDA inspection, which is part of the regulatory standards. This 120-plus tariff could really create great financial hardship for people on fixed incomes or poor people or people with very limited incomes. Now, we're approaching in less than 2 years the midterm elections, and the Republican Party could suffer a major setback if people are paying astronomical sums for these drugs. My mother lived to 95, God bless her. She was taking a drug, she died in 2022, that was $450 a month, and I understand there's other drugs that are much more expensive. The drug was not made in China, to the best of my knowledge. However, it has been reported by the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank. I'm not sure if it's in D.C. or here, in the New York or, Boston area belt, that includes a lot of prominent people, globalist types, that as of 2023, 45% of cardiac drugs come from China, and many cardiac drugs are very expensive. 98% of antibiotics come from China. And there is a fascinating guest, which a foundation affiliated with Johnson & Johnson Corporation, and she has testified before Congress. And what she said on
Oh, Marilyn, we lost you. But basically that, we're completely dependent. No, I hear you, that we are absolutely completely dependent for so many of these vital drugs that we need for, as you said, antibiotics, insulin, heart medication. You could go on and on. And so that's one of my big concerns. I think that's what I mean when I say our relationship with China over the last 25 years it's made us very dependent, and it's been very reckless and irresponsible. Now, I do want to go back to your original point, because you're right. Look, let me just quickly tell you. So when I was at the Washington Times, we had a ownership from Korea. And look, like many from East Asia, very hardworking, very disciplined, very conscientious, really, just in many ways, excellent business people, excellent managers. But let me tell you what I noticed. And it wasn't just me, it was across the company. And it's so foreign to Americans. I'm telling you, it's going to be hard for you to wrap your mind around this. So I don't want to get into the specifics. It was something that happened inside the office. Long story short, the president of the company, who was Korean, made a mistake. Okay? Made a mistake. It happens in every company. CEOs make mistakes. Presidents make mistakes. What do? You apologize. No problem. You say we're going to reverse the policy or change the policy, and we move on. That's how it's done in America, in Canada, in Europe, and generally in the Western world. We had a meeting with him. I swear to you, it was an hour, almost 70-minute meeting. We resolved the problem within 5 minutes. It was me and a couple of other senior editors. Within 5 minutes, here is the mistake. This is how it's hurting the paper. This is what we need to change or to reverse policy. Very smart guy. He got the issue. He acknowledged the problem. And it was done within 5 minutes. So to be honest, because we were told by other editors, oh, don't go in that meeting. We're like, why shouldn't you go into that meeting? He goes, you'll see. It's going to take you forever to get out of there. I'm like, what is he talking about? We're like, what is this guy? He goes, you'll see what I mean. And like, okay. They go, he's Korean. He's not American. He's Asian. He's not American. And we're like, what is this guy talking about? So literally within 5 minutes, and you could just tell our eyes were looking at each other and we're like, this was really fast. I mean, 5 minutes. They were making it seem like there's going to be World War III in here. Then, and he didn't do it in a hostile way. He then looked at all four of us in the room. We're all Americans. I was on a green card, so technically Canadian legal resident. The other three were, born and raised in America. And he puts his hands on his face. And he puts them back out on the table. And then he puts them back again on his face. And then he puts them on the table. And we're looking and like, what? And he says, I've lost face. I made the decision. I'm the one that has to reverse it. That means I failed as the president. I failed as the manager. You don't understand. In the eyes of the ownership, and he was convinced of this, in the eyes of the employees, I've lost face. Now, we tried to explain to him, again, very smart man, very nice man. Hey, look, this happens all the time. Like, don't worry. Hey, listen, honestly, we don't think less of you. We really don't. Nobody, the journalists don't, the editors don't, the people who work, the staff, the administration. Hey, you made a mistake. I make mistakes. He makes mistakes. We're all pointing at each other. People make mistakes. Don't worry. It's okay. No, you don't understand. It's culture. You can't. It's an ingrained cultural characteristic. He lost face. Now, how do we extricate him from losing face? And that was the next 65 minutes of the meeting. I heard from people meetings sometimes go on 2, 3, 4 hours. Because it's all about, so what press, I swear to you, the press statement, the press release. How is the press release written? That this doesn't impact, it was this convoluted, almost insane press release that the policy has been changed and it's because of the greatness of the president. I'm serious. And the farsightedness of the president. And it had to be written in a way where he comes out smelling like an absolute rose. And you can see he's like, he goes, I've lost face. It's like he was caught walking around nude. The only way I can compare it to is like he's naked. Like we just caught him naked. He's ashamed. Now, to bring it now to Xi Jinping, this is what I'm trying to see. If you don't understand this, you don't understand what's happening in China now at the leadership level. Xi has now lost face. He's lost face. Basically, think of it's the equivalent. He's been caught nude in public walking around. He can't show his face in public. He's ashamed. He's humiliated. So he can't back down. He will not back down. Why? Because now he will lose face. Because he told his people, we'll win this trade war. He told his people, I'll break Trump. He told his people, retaliate. Because many in the CCP at the Politburo level said, I think Trump's going to take this all the way to the end. I don't think Trump's going to back down. And he says, no, we're holding the cards. He's not holding the cards. And what is he holding? They own a lot of our debt. They own a lot of our bonds, our treasuries. They can threaten or menace Taiwan. They can, in other words, they think that, by the way, now they're talking about cutting off the critical supply of rare earth minerals to the United States. So if we want to make, say, our military technology here or many of our military weapon systems, you can't. You need the rare earth minerals. Electronics, phones, batteries for the Teslas, the car batteries, you need the rare earth minerals. So Xi is telling his people, I can cut the Americans off at their economic throat. I'll cut off the rare earth minerals. We can blockade or invade Taiwan. We can dump their treasuries because they have such high debt. So he's telling them, don't worry, we're holding cards. Now he's starting to realize he overplayed his hand. Because without access to the American market, literally, China's economy now is going to crash. It's going to crater. You can dump all the bonds, all the treasuries you want now. You can cut off your rare earth minerals. Trump anticipated that. He's moving into Greenland. He's cutting deals with Russia and Ukraine. He's going to fill the rare earth minerals from other countries to offset China's. They got the biggest deposit of rare earth minerals in the world. So he's going to replace what the Chinese are going to threaten to cut off to us. So for Xi now, it's a fight to the death. He's now locked in. And I'm just trying to explain this. Their calculations are different than our calculations. Look, like or don't like, it's rational. Trump looks at the bond market. He looks at the stock market. He looks at what his people are saying. He looks at what his base is saying. It's rational. It's investment, productivity, money, performance, popularity. These are all rational considerations. Face and honor is not rational. There's now an irrational element into this now showdown between China and the United States. I'm not saying I don't back Trump. I back him all the way. But if I was advising him, I'd say, be careful now. Xi is not going to back out. He's not backing down. I think it's to our advantage. I think his stubbornness, his fear to lose face, is going to force him to fight this trade war to the bitter end, and it's going to cost him and the CCP everything. Everything. At a bare minimum, I think other leaders in the Politburo are going to say, Xi screwed us. Xi messed it up. Yeah, he's losing face. Here's the ultimate losing face. You're gone. And they're going to overthrow him in a coup. We'll see what happens. But a desperate Xi is a dangerous Xi. And my only concern is, remember, to go after Trump the first time over that trade war that they lost in his first administration and to prevent him from coming to power, they unleashed a bioweapon that killed millions of people. That's how vicious and brutal these people are. Don't put it past them if they seek to invade or blockade Taiwan. So if I'm advising Trump, I say get ready for Taiwan. Make sure we put a huge deterrent on Taiwan, because China now could very likely lash out in a way you would think that is utterly irrational. But from their point of view, it makes all the sense in the world. So be careful of Xi Jinping. He's much more dangerous, and he's always been much more dangerous than Vladimir Putin. 617-266-6868 is the number. Ken in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Ken.
I'd say we just witnessed Operation Smokeout yesterday. No ifs, ands, or buts. going to lighten it up a little bit from the last half hour, because those are very serious issues as far as what do we do with pharmaceuticals. But I'm viewing something that we see over and over. It's like a cartoon. Roadrunner, with the lead character is Trump, and all his enemies and adversaries are the coyotes stuck with the Acme dynamite that keeps blowing up in their face. Because literally he's got the next step figured out, and they're like a week too late. Because that's the reality of what we're staring at. It amazes me that people haven't thought through, okay, he did what he did yesterday. What does that set up? Well, it sets up the tax. Because why was it 90 days? Because we're going to have to pass a tax bill or government, our next budget, which is going to include tax cuts. And guess what? With these 10% minimum tariffs and whatever 100-some% of China, guess who's going to do the scoring on that? The CBO. And how do they do the scoring? Oh, static model. Oh, that's going to come up to about $500 billion of revenue to the government, which we can send back in tax cuts, can't we? Makes it a hell of a lot easier and much easier to sell to a tightly divided Congress. And here's a little cherry on the story that I'm foreseeing, is he's going to bump up the top tax rate by 0.5%, kneecapping the Democrats and their tax cuts from the rich, because they'll have no argument. All gone.
Ken, I hope I hope the Trump team is listening, because I agree with you. I think the timing is not coincidental. I think the tax cut, that one big, beautiful bill, is going to lead to an unprecedented economic boom. And you're right. I would, on the top rates, I would bump it up a little bit. Do not have to do it too much, but I'd bump it up a little bit just to take that argument, that arrow away from the Democrats' quiver. But I want to go back to your first point, because I think you're so spot on. The Democrats, rhinos, Trump's critics keep underestimating Trump. To be honest, I think it's Trump's secret weapon. They underestimated him in 2016 during the election. They underestimated him during his entire first term as president. They underestimated him when he was in exile. They thought, well, the lawfare was definitely going to bury him. He would never come back. He did. They underestimated him again against Kamala Harris, and they keep underestimating him. And I think they underestimated him again on these tariffs. The Democrats really thought China was going to clean his clock. They really thought that the stock market was going to completely crash, and that the American people would turn on him, the world would turn on him, and that the whole world would run and turn to communist China. And Trump literally flipped the entire script. Again, an absolute masterstroke. And they keep underestimating Trump. And to be honest, Ken, that's what I keep telling my wonderful wife, Grace. She's always, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that, I think he's making a mistake here, I think he's making a mistake there. And I'm like, you see, you keep underestimating him. He's playing three-dimensional chess. He's multiple moves ahead of his opponents and his critics. And I think yesterday he showed it again. Ken, thank you very, very much for that call. Agree, disagree. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, buddy.
Mark, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, sir. Hey, listen, as far as all this stuff goes, I think it's fantastic. I love it. I love the nations that come into the table wanting to renegotiate, and, good on Trump for getting this stuff done. But you know me, Jeff, I get my head off the pillow in the morning and I say, what can the lunatics do next? So my theory is this, Jeff. You're going to now hear in the media and from the Democrats that this was stock market manipulation, Jeff. I don't see more than 3 months from now, Southern District of New York is going to try to indict him on SEC violations and all these other things, saying that he intentionally manipulated the stock market to benefit himself and to benefit wealthy donors, and they're going to get a paid informant, anonymous whistleblower who's going to say that they overheard advisors of Donald Trump saying that they were going to release the date when they were going to lift the tariff so people could maximize their wealth. And they're going to push an indictment on this, Jeff, and the media's going to love it. They're going to say he did this. He doesn't care about hurting the working people. He doesn't care about your retirement. He did this to enrich himself and his wealthy donors.
You know, Mark, I wish I could disagree with you, but I'm telling you I can't. Because almost right on cue, that's exactly what the Democrats were saying yesterday. The minute they heard that Trump was now implementing a 90-day tariff pause, they start. Schiff is going nuts. Schumer's going nuts. Hakeem Jeffries is losing his mind. They're all like, exactly what you just said. This is insider trading. This is market manipulation. Who got rich off of this? Billionaires, his friends. We need an investigation. You can't make this up. So he did what they wanted him to do. Schiff literally said, well, he's got to do a 90-day pause. No, he can't keep these tariffs on all these other countries. He's got to stop. In an historic move yesterday, one for the ages, really. Textbook art of the deal, baby. Donald Trump, 90-day pause on the global tariffs, but he increases the tariff on China to a crushing, devastating 125%. It's going to be for 3 months, this tariff pause, where he will be renegotiating with about 100 countries. For China, the 125 is going to remain until Xi Jinping cries uncle. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very, very quick. You can text the Kuhner Man 70470, 70470. This is from 603. Jeff, what we just saw is beyond the art of the deal. This is the art of the deal meets Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And the real kick in the stones for the Chinese is that President Trump is literally using the tactics of China's most famous ancient war general against them. Xi would do well to read the book, and it would make a great gift for Grace as well. Game, set, and match. I agree. You know, and 603, absolutely, I think, brilliant analogy. It's the art of the deal combined with the art of war. He baited Xi, he suckered Xi in, and then he dropped the hammer. And now Xi's got nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. And he's now locked into a trade war, an economic war, a tariff war that he and the CCP cannot win. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me read one more. This is from 617. Jeff, I hear what your caller, and this is Marilyn in Norwood, is saying about the importance of respect and face honor in Asian culture. But this applies to friends, not enemies. Communist China is our enemy. China is our mortal enemy, no different than the Axis powers in World War II. The CCP is dedicated to the destruction and domination of the West. Their regime respects nothing of us. We must defeat that regime and not negotiate with it. And so I ask your caller, Marilyn, what has respect for the CCP gotten us so far? Well, that's that's my position. I understand the honor culture, the face culture, the culture of respect. But all we've done is lay down for them for 25 years. No one has cheated us more. No one has stolen more from us. No one has abused us more, mistreated us more, taken advantage of us more. Frankly, to be blunt, economically raped us more than the Chinese Communist Party. this is now the time to bury them once and for all. Agree, disagree. Let me throw this log on the fire, and I want to get all of your take on this. Trump and his Treasury Secretary came out yesterday saying that this was deliberate on the part of the president, that this was his plan, this was his strategy from the beginning, and that he laid a trap. He knew he was going to maximize his negotiating position with all these other countries in the world, the Europeans, the Canadians, the Mexicans, the Japanese, a lot of the other Asian countries. And by asking for, imposing very high tariffs to set up a 90-day negotiating period where they will now renegotiate, and it'll be on terms much more favorable to the United States and American workers. But they also knew that China, a bully, belligerent, a predatory power, would try to throw its weight around and try to trigger a global trade war in which they believe that the world would swing to them and not us. And instead, the very opposite happened. I want you to listen now to Scott Bessent saying, we laid the trap and China fell right into it. Roll cut 5. This is Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury, on Fox. Roll cut 5, Mike.
I think it's unfortunate that the Chinese actually don't want to come and negotiate because they are the worst offenders in the international trading system. They have the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world. And, I can tell you that this escalation is a loser for them. That they have some very smart, the economists, the academicians, technocrats within their bureaucracy, and they would be telling the leadership that we do not have the edge here. They are the surplus country, that their exports to the U.S. are 5 times our exports to China. So they can raise their tariffs, but so what?
Bingo. So what? So what? You see, now their strategy of the last 25 years is blowing up in their face. Because they've been saying we're going to export, and import almost nothing. And this way we run trade surplus. We dump these cheap goods into, especially the United States, but in countries all over the world. And we take their jobs, we take their factories, we take their wealth, we take their money. But now you've got no leverage. Listen now to Bessent saying, this was Trump's plan. I know. I spoke to him. We were talking about this for weeks. This was the plan all along. Roll cut 6. Mike.
How much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening? Is China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today, and all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along, and that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well. And nobody retaliated more than China. Trump flushed them out, and now the Chinese are going to pay. And maybe they've just made the ultimate mistake. We'll see. We'll see. Joe in Abington. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
You mentioned a term about Trump is playing 3-dimensional chess. And I started to think, how is he doing it? And it hit me. Way before the trade war started, Trump was working with Ukraine and Russia. And he put into the deal that Ukraine would pay us back with rare earth minerals because Trump knew the trade war was coming. He knew China would not be cooperative, and he was looking for places to replenish things that we needed. That's three-dimensional chess.
Oh, you're dead on. Joe, you're absolutely dead on. Look, doesn't his move on Greenland now look completely different in retrospect? Remember, it's like out of the blue, like, why is he wants to buy Greenland. He wants to make a deal with Greenland.
I could just add to what the secretary said. Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is the best place in the world to do business. And as the president has shown great courage, as the secretary has said, in choosing to retaliate against China even higher.
That, of course, was Caroline Levitt, and I think she hit the nail right on the head. 8:50 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, do you agree with what Trump did yesterday? That's number one. And number two, do you believe this was Trump's plan or strategy the whole time? And I just want to read a text that I got from Grace, my wonderful wife. As you know, she's been against Trump's tariffs almost from the beginning. Not in theory, but she thinks he should have waited, sequenced it better, gotten his big, beautiful bill passed, phased it in, maybe just focus on China and not attempt to tariff other countries around the world. Well, this is what she wrote to me. Jeff, there's no other way to say it, so I'm going to say it. This was a huge about-face and surrender by Trump. He blinked. The bond market was against him. He saw that the tariffs were blowing back against him from other countries. He was losing his trade war. And so Liberation Day only lasted a few days, and then he backtracked by giving a 90-day pause and trying to focus only on China. He didn't have to cause this much disruption, this much economic damage, this much chaos in the world. This was badly thought out, badly planned out. And Trump now is just trying to save face. So, do you agree that, according to Grace, yes, she's happy he pivoted. She's very happy that it's a 90-day pause. The market is now rebounding. Stock market soared yesterday. Investors' nerves have been calmed. We're looking at a 90-day negotiation where we're going to get much better deals. But she's saying it's done tremendous short-term damage because this was not his strategy. It was poorly thought out. He fought a trade war, and he wasn't able to win his trade war. So essentially, it's a retreat. He's keeping the levies on China in order to save face. Do you agree with Grace on this issue? 617-266-6868. I, of course, disagree, but that's me. I want to hear from you. Robert in the great state of Maine. Thanks for holding, Robert, and welcome.
Jeff. Thank you for all you're doing for us. Listen, 3 quick points. Grace is usually right, but she's wrong on this, and that's okay. And, same with Rand Paul. He's basically a good guy and helped us a lot with that crud Fauci. And he's wrong on this, so just cut him a little slack, one doc to another doc. We're not the best people in the world for business. And, he wanted to send a committee to negotiate a business deal, just like they did at Versailles. And we saw what that happened. Second point, as far as face goes and saving face, yes, it's true, but it only works up to a certain point. And one of the points But Donald Trump understands completely, as all your listeners have brought up, and you too so far. He basically just, knows that when you've got the pistol to their head and your boot on their throat, the keeping face is not as strong. And finally, as far as the analogy between Ronald Reagan and what he did to the Russians with Star Wars and what President Trump is doing with the tariffs, all the analogies apply, I think. But there's two things that people don't mention. One is that one of the differences was we had a free democracy and we weren't dictators the way they were in Russia. So I think that's another point that made strength to President Reagan's argument. Anyway, those are my 3 points, Jeff, and thanks for all you do.
Oh, thank you, Robert. I think, honestly, bang, bang, bang on all 3. I think you hit them all right on the head. Look, I think there's no question now. Look, the Chinese Communist Party, they're reeling. They're on the ropes. For the first time since Tiananmen Square in 1989, they're in big trouble, and I'll tell you why. Because they made a pact with the people of China. They said, look, you're not going to have democracy. You're not going to have human rights. You're not going to have basic liberties and freedoms as you have in America or, other countries in the West. But, in other words, you're going to be run by a one-party state. But we're going to raise your living standards. Your life is going to get continuously better. You're going to have more money in your pocket. You're going to have jobs. You're going to have consumer goods. You're going to be able to live better, certainly better than any previous generation in Chinese history. So as long as the Chinese Communist Party, that's why Xi Jinping has been obsessed. That's why they're in the Panama Canal. That's why, up north in Canada, there's a huge election. The Canadian Liberal Party, led by now Mark Carney, who succeeded Justin Trudeau, he's essentially a paid mouthpiece for Communist China. China now has massively infiltrated Canada's political system, the current ruling regime. They want to turn Canada essentially into a sphere or a territory of China. That's why they're buying up ports all over the world. That's why they're buying up rare earth mineral deposits all over the world. Because Xi Jinping understands, and the CCP understands, that the key to their power, the key to their wealth and their control, is to continue to develop China's economy and to export their cheap goods and products all over the world. If China's economy now begins to crater, they're finished. The Chinese people are going to rise up against them. And so that's why Xi now, he doesn't know what to do. He's stuck between a rock and a hard place. And Trump understands that. You see, the one thing Trump has that Xi doesn't, time. He's got time. Fine, this may go on for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a year. It doesn't matter. Because we don't need them. They need us. And so the longer they can't dump their goods, and by the way, Vietnam doesn't want them. South Korea doesn't want them. Japan doesn't want them. Nobody wants them. Europe doesn't want them. See, that's their problem now. They've alienated the world because they've essentially become the world's bully. And so now, what are you going to do? Factories are idle? Because shipping containers literally are coming back. They're turning around. You're going to have unemployment. It's already very high for the youth. Chinese young people in their 20s. It's 25%. It's going to be 30, 35, 50%. So you're going to have a country of young people without work, without prospects, without hope. You can't control this. So Xi is right now like a lobster in a boiling pot. How much more can he stand this? So, yeah, he's going to try to save face. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then his party people are going to look at him and say, hey, you see the protests? They're spreading. It's getting worse. It's Tiananmen Square all over again. And that's when they're going to have to make a decision. Either stand with Xi all the way, which I think will lead to the regime's collapse, or they're going to have to overthrow him. Now, either way, I'm telling you, it's bad for Xi and it's bad for China. So if I'm President Trump, you're holding all the cards. To quote Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank, who's a great financial analyst, as he said, put the tariff up to 400%. Why? He goes, not because I hate the Chinese people, quite the opposite. No one cheats more. No one steals more. No one has abused the international trading system more than China. They steal our best technology. They steal our intellectual property. They've been spying on us. The Chinese balloon under Biden is Exhibit A. They unleashed COVID on the world, killing millions of people, and God knows how many Americans. No, as Kevin O'Leary said, you squeeze the Chinese, meaning their leadership, until you squeeze their heads into the wall, quote unquote, and i.e., you break them. No mercy, no surrender. And now, as the world is negotiating deals with you, China just sits there, and it gets poorer and poorer and poorer. And it gets more and more and more alone and isolated. This is Reagan, man. Different context. I understand there was Star Wars, military buildup. It was the Cold War. Of course, it's not the perfect analogy, but the point is, the Soviet Union at the time was the number one communist threat to the world and to America. China is now the number one communist threat to the world and to America. Trump now is about to bring them to their economic knees. And one last point. Never forget this. Every time you buy a Chinese good or product, you're helping them spend money on their military. The only reason why they have such a vast, powerful military that threatens and menaces not just their neighbors, but literally the world, is because their economy has been rising and rising for the last 25 years off the back of America, off of us. One of the greatest strategic blunders in American history was the decision by that traitor, Bill Clinton, to have China enter the World Trade Organization in 2001. Once China got into the WTO, they abused the trading system. They had unrestricted access to our market. They were ripping us off $500 billion a year. And that's what underwrote and funded their massive, unprecedented military. The biggest buildup in history. To the point now they've almost caught us. You crater their economy, you crater their military. And then the whole thing comes crashing down. 617-266-6868. Again, art of the deal, as one of the texters put it, art of the deal meets Sun Tzu's The Art of War. That's what Trump did, and I gotta say, he planned it and executed it perfectly. Perfectly. And look at the Democrats now. Look how ridiculous they look. Again, look how treasonous, how extreme, how frankly fanatical, how insane they look. They're the ones who've been yelling and screaming for the last week. End the tariffs, end the tariff war, make a deal, pause on the tariffs. Trump says, okay. The timing now, timing in life is everything. Okay. Here it is. On every country except one, China. And what's their response? Here it is. Listen to Adam, piece of Schiff. Okay, listen to Adam Schiff. Roll cut 10, a mic.
Writing to the White House to demand who knew in advance that the president was going to once again flip-flop on tariffs. And are people cashing in? There is just all too much opportunity for people in the White House and the administration to be insider trading, and you can't put it past them for a minute. So we're going to try to find out.
So there you go. So now it's insider trading. By the way, there's no evidence. There's no evidence for any of this. But now, all of a sudden, we're going to launch an investigation. This raises questions. Well, he flip-flopped on tariffs. Well, you wanted him to flip-flop on tariffs. That was been your position for the last week. So we go, okay, you guys want me to pause the tariffs? I'm pausing the tariffs. Suddenly, well, insider trading. Who got rich off of this? Who? Well, do you have any evidence that anybody got rich off of this? Anybody from his administration? Anybody connected? What, did Trump invest in the stock market? Did his family invest in the stock market? Did they buy low and sell? Did they buy low and now have made a mint as the stock market roared yesterday? Nothing. Just innuendo, smears, lies, and libels. But now this is going to be their new attack. You see, now they have to side with the Chinese Communist Party. See, this is what China bought now. They bought this kind of influence on Capitol Hill. Now it's investigate Trump, impeach Trump. They want him to end his tariff war with China. So now they're not accusing China of predatory and duplicitous behavior. No. Hey, the communist Chinese, they're so above board. We love them. Listen now to Adam Piece of Schiff saying this needs an investigation. Wink, wink. We're looking at impeachment. Roll cut 10A. Mike.
I think Congress should do an investigation into this, but we're going to demand answers from the administration. I think you're right. They're likely to stonewall, particularly if they've been engaged in corrupt insider trading. But they won't be able to hide it for good. I mean, we know who's in the administration. We can look at eventually what people are buying and selling. This will come out. But an administration that has their own meme coins and is already engaged in self-interested dealing, Elon is doging agencies that are doing oversight of their own businesses. In that kind of corrupt climate, you have to assume the worst, and we're going to try to find out.
There you go. So, I mean, it's just like, just the way this guy lies. He lies the way I breathe. Effortless. Constant, effortless. So, Elon is doging agencies that are overseeing him. What? That's a lie? Well, you just made that one up? Then it's like, look at the self-dealing. Oh, we're going to look at insider trading, the corruption. Well, do you have any evidence whatsoever that there was any corruption? Any insider trading? So let me get this straight now. President imposes tariffs. You don't like the tariffs. He now pulls back on the tariffs. And instead of saying, okay, he did what I wanted him to do, good move. No. Now it's we investigate, we impeach. Why? Insider trading. Where's your evidence? There is none. Literally, there is none. But don't worry, we'll find it. We'll find what? You don't even have a shred of evidence. Hell, you don't even have an allegation. You got nothing. Adam Schiff is bought and paid for by Communist China. Nancy Pelosi is bought and paid for by Communist China. Chuck Schumer, do you see the picture of him? With the Chinese flag, literally wrapped in the Chinese flag, surrounded by top Chinese communist officials, smiling ear to ear, bought and paid for by the Chinese Communist Party. Joe Biden, bought and paid for by the Chinese Communist Party. They now have to lash out at Trump because the dirty secret is the Democrats would rather that Communist China win than that the United States defeat China in this trade war. They're literally now shilling for the other side, for our mortal enemy and adversary. Just like General Milley was a mouthpiece for the Chinese communists, that's exactly now what the Democrats have become. The whole stinking party. There's a word for that. It's called treason. Peter in Florida. Thanks for holding, Peter, and welcome.
Good
Hi,
morning. The reason for the tariffs is to create worldwide deflation. because all the world's paper money is really worthless. And the reason he's attenuating it is to avoid a worldwide depression. And who knows, maybe we'll see a repeat of the Taiping Rebellion.
Oh, you mean where the peasants rise up against the government? Like they did 100 years ago, over 100 years ago in China?
It was called the Peasant Rebellion.
Well, Peter, I got to tell you, if the Chinese economy collapses, and they're on the brink now, if this trade war goes on for another 2-3 weeks, the Chinese economy is in big trouble. Big trouble. I agree with you, Peter. History could be repeating itself. The peasants may rise up, and if the peasants rise up, the communists will fall. Thank you for that call, Peter. Excellent analysis. Victor in Georgetown. Thanks for holding, Victor, and welcome.
Kuhner, man, couple of quick points, but before I do, I want to tell you, your show today should be the master class for people going to college, their first year in Econ 101. They've got to get their heads out of the cloud before the communist professors get a hold of them. You're doing a great job, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. No, thank you, Victor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Couple of quick points, and this is coming from a baby boomer, a decorated combat Marine who has fought against the communist Chinese. So I might be a little bit jaded, but on the first point I want to make real quickly, pride before the fall. I hope that Xi Jinping's pride is broken and he does something ridiculous, because when most people do something on tilt, it's because something happened to them and their pride got hurt or they made a bad decision or whatever. So bruising his pride is a good thing. That was number one. Number two, the reason that a lot of these companies went over to communist China is because the left-wing nutballs have made the regulations next to impossible to comply with. So they just go over there and make their drugs over there.
Victor, can you do me a favor? That's an excellent point. Can you just hang on? I'm up against a hard break. I want to come right back to you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Trump now pauses tariffs on most of the world, but boosts tariffs on China to 125%. And now Adam Schiff and the Democrats, I swear to you, are calling for a congressional investigation into possible insider trading. That's their response. Somehow a crime must have been committed. 617-266-6868. Let's go right back to Victor in Georgetown. Victor, we got cut off, but please pick up where you left off.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. And Jeff, thank you also for pointing out to your listeners that it was Bill Clinton that gave communist China the full membership in the World Trade Organization. That was the beginning of the end of American middle class. We have people here. We got a city here right next to me that used to manufacture skis, used to manufacture Stride Right shoes, used to manufacture EPI speakers. All those industries have gone, Jeff. They've gone to Mexico or to communist China or what have you. And it's simply because of allowing that big monster into our economic world. But just to finish up, on the regulations part, do you know, under the guise of consumer protection, Jeff, and you know this is their old game plan book. I'll give you an example. I read this article years ago. There was a 4-year whiskey in California that was getting crushed by a new company that was a 3-year whiskey. So that 4-year whiskey company owner went to the regulators and said, in California, we got to protect these consumers from that 3-year whiskey. So they passed a law. Only 4-year whiskey could be sold in California, putting the 3-year whiskey out of business overnight. So that's what regulation will do for you. But the last point I want to make, Jeff, and this to me is the biggest one, is that communist China sends 300,000 students, their approved students, to America to get educated. And they get educated in finance, in technology, in political science, what have you. and they infiltrate our country. I'll give you an example. It's no mistake that it was a communist Chinese hooker that was sleeping with Democrat Swalwell, the congressman in California. She was a student here before anything else. The chauffeur that was spying on Democrat Senator Feinstein for 25 years previously was a communist student in America. President Trump is about to drop the hammer on communist China. People think that it's over. Jeff, you are 100% correct. I will never say that Grace was wrong. I would never make that statement. But this was just round one. When they dropped the hammer on these students because of national security being evicted from this country, it will absolutely be one of the best days that I will celebrate, because
I agree. I agree. No, Victor, you're on every count. I completely agree with you. And look, let me just add to what you're saying. And as always, thank you for your call, Victor. Thousands of Chinese spies, literally spies for communist China, are allowed to come into the United States every year, going on now for at least, 25, 30 years. So just do the math. And you're right. They're in academia. They're in business. They're in corporate America. They in medical research. They're in tech. And that's what they do. They're here to spy. They're here to engage in intellectual property theft. They are blackmailing members of Congress. Some of them are actually sleeping with members of Congress, like Swalwell, or their chauffeurs, or they work on their staff, or whatever. And it's not just Democrats, it's many Republicans as well. And what they didn't bank on, this was the one thing they didn't bank on. They thought they had pretty much bought off every single politician possible, but they couldn't bribe or buy off Donald Trump. And by the grace of God, he's president of the United States. And what Trump now needs to do, he's got to expose China's extensive espionage spying network that they have in Congress, in government, in business, in academia, in our universities, across the entire country. Because I'm telling you, the Chinese are waging, the communist Chinese regime is waging a Cold War against us, just like the old Soviet Union. The only difference is we haven't been fighting back. Now with Trump, we're finally fighting back. Bruce in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Bruce, and welcome. Bruce, listen, buddy, I hate to rush you, but we've got an interview coming up at the 9:30 with Paul Craney, so I only got about a minute for you, so please go ahead, my friend. Let her rip.
All right, I'm going to send it. Listen, what we have MAGA, and then on the other hand, we have maggots. So we got MAGA and maggots, and the maggots turn into flies. And what do flies do, Jeff? They eat excrement and bother people. And that's what we have in Congress. That's what we have in our House of Representatives. The Democrats are more of a threat to us than China will ever be. They're across the ocean. We got them right here embedded in our country, Jeff. Let's get rid of them.
They're the fifth columnists. I agree with you. They're the enemy within. Bruce, very well said. Thank you so much for that call. 617-266-6868. Okay, coming up next, trust me when I tell you this, must listen to radio. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, as I mentioned maybe 7 or 10 days ago, roughly, maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, my recent energy utility gas bills, $2,500. $2,500. And I'm not the only one. Soaring energy costs, high utility bills, gas bills are devastating middle working class families in Massachusetts in particular, obviously, but in many blue states across the entire country. And so the question many of you have been asking is why? Why? Why is your National Grid bill or your Eversource bill or wherever you get your energy and your gas and utilities from, why has the price skyrocketed and soared? Well, you're not going to believe the answer. It's not what Governor Maura Healey says. It's not Trump's fault. It's not because of the price of gas on the international market or the price of coal. No. No. Far from it. Joining us now to blow the whistle on this and really shed a spotlight. We've had him on many times before. You know him, you love him. Paul Craney from the Mass Fiscal Alliance. Paul, how are you?
Doing well, Jeff. Thank you for having me on, and I'm sorry you're a little bit poor because of that energy bill.
It's killing me. Really, it's the one thing that's really, no matter how much I save, I pay my bills, the gas bill or the utility bill, and my savings are gone. So, Paul, I've got to ask you, I know I'm not the only one. Energy costs have exploded over the last couple of years. What's the primary reason? Who's the major culprit and why?
Well, the plan is going as planned. That's what's really happening. I'm coming on your show because, unfortunately, I don't think this will be the first or last time I'm going to be talking about this. But in Massachusetts and the several other New England states, our state elected leaders, the governors and the legislatures, have signed on to something called net zero, and they put an arbitrary date of 2050. In Massachusetts, a law that was passed is called the Global Warming Solutions Act. That is the law that was passed that took a goal and made everything into a mandate. And this sounds like it's a little complicated, a lot of kind of insider jargon. But basically what happened is they are trying to transition New England from mostly natural gas and nuclear power to solar, wind, and battery. Those are often called green, renewable. I like to call them alternate forms of energy because there's nothing that is green. There's no such thing as green energy. Everything has some kind of cost to the environment. But that transition from a high-density, reliable, cost-efficient energy source of natural gas and nuclear to a weather dependency, low-density energy comes at a price. And for the first time, probably ever, ratepayers, those are people who pay the bills, are just starting to notice it on their bills this past winter. But unfortunately, Jeff, for everyone that's listening right now, this is part of the plan. We are noticing the bills increase because we are paying. And it is, Jeff, it is the slightest squeeze right now. This is going to become a lot more expensive year over year because our legislature and our governor have been mandating that we transition away from, again, natural gas and nuclear to wind, solar, and battery, which is alternate forms of energy. So I wanted to come on your show to kind of, make sure that people understand who's to blame. It's not what's going on in Washington. It is not even Eversource or some of the other utility companies. They are taking their orders by legislatures and governors who are mandated by law, that they start to change how they distribute energy for New England. So, again, the law that was passed is called the Global Warming Solutions Act. And what it does is it takes away all the goals, it mandates that people start to pay for the transition. And we are just at the beginning of it all. So I'm encouraging your audience to start.
Paul, before we go to the call to action, and I promise I'm going to give you plenty of time because people need to get involved, they need to get empowered and informed, and we need to act. Paul, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you saying that, I'm paying $2,000, $2,500 a month? Is this going to go up to $3,000? Is it going to go up to $3,500? In other words, Paul, seriously, I can't survive. I'm going to have to leave. Eventually, I'm going to have to leave the state. Are we going to see our energy bills continue to go up and up and up to astronomical levels?
Yes, the short answer is yes. If you ask the Healy administration or her bureaucrats that are implementing this, they haven't been able to give us actual numbers of what is the cost to go net zero, what is the cost for, again, renewable green energy, alternate forms of energy. There's no one that's been able to give costs. But last year, my group, along with 5 other New England states, put together a study, and we actually got a cost. And no one's actually been able to pull the cost. But the study showed that in New England, it's going to cost ratepayers, again, people who pay the bills, which is pretty much everyone on this call listening to the show, it's going to cost $815 billion by 2050 for that transition. Now, how does that apply to the average ratepayer in New England? It's about $51,000 each of us are going to have to pay as individuals. That cost is a lot more for commercial and for industrial ratepayers. Those are in the thousands per year. So it is expensive, and the reason is because you're transitioning an entire part of the country to a new energy source that's weather dependent, and it's low density, unreliable energy. So you have to build like 3 times the amount of energy capacity than what we currently have right now, just because it's, again, weather dependent. It's low density energy. It doesn't always it doesn't always blow the wind or have sunny days. So you need a lot more to satisfy the need of the region. And the need of the region is going up, I think it's about 15% over the next few years of the demand for the energy.
Paul, these people are crazy.
Yeah.
Paul, they're crazy.
I know.
They're nuts. I'm telling you, these people are crazy. They are going to wipe out and destroy the middle and working class. Paul, look, we've got less than about 2 minutes. I want to give you time. There's something people can do. I'm urging everybody, you've got to get involved, because if not, you're going to get wiped out. I'm telling you, you're going to go bankrupt. So it's either now or never. Paul, what can people do? Where can they go, get more information, and get involved?
So I want your audience to get educated on what's happening, because this is not going away. This is a big, from goal to mandate. This is like one of their dreams that they're trying to fulfill. So check out massfiscal.org, massfiscal.org. Right now we have a call to action. We're encouraging people to email their lawmakers and the governor, and it's basically saying, no more mandate. We can't afford the mandate. Ratepayers cannot afford this. This doesn't make any sense. Get rid of the law, the Global Warming Solutions Act, which is the mandate. If you go to our website, massfiscal.org, you take our call to action. We'll send that email on your behalf. You just have to fill out your name and your address and your email address. But we want to start putting pressure into these state houses that people are starting to know why their rates are going up. And the blame is getting put to the right people. It's not Eversource. It's not what's going on down in Washington. It is our governor and our legislature that are doing these mandates. Jeff, one last thing, too. You asked, the cost. Our studies show that the average ratepayer in New England is going to see about a $100 increase every single entire year. So whatever you're paying this year, add another $1,200 next year. That's what you're going to per month, that's what you're going to kind of see. That's what we think.
$100 a month next year. So that's going to be $1,200. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Paul Craney, Mass Fiscal Alliance. I'm urging all of you, please go to massfiscal.org, 617-266-6868. Okay. Many of you are emailing, texting the Kuhner Man. It is the Global Warming Solutions Act. That is the bill that was passed by the legislature, signed obviously by the Moonbat governor, that now creates a mandate by 2050. We have to be net zero, which is it's a mandate to force people off of fossil fuels, essentially, and nuclear power, and to embrace so-called quote-unquote green energy, which is not green, but let that go, solar, wind, and battery. And as you heard Paul Craney, it's why your bills are very expensive. Don't blame National Grid. Don't blame Eversource. Literally, they're basically they're put in a straitjacket. Their hands are tied by the legislature and by this law, and so they have to use more wind and more solar and more battery every single year, which is extremely expensive. And the cost, just so that you know, per family is going to keep rising all the way up for the next 25 years. You're going to have no relief for 25 years. It's going to be on average $100 extra a month. So $1,200 a year. So let's say you're paying, I'm just going to make up a figure, you're paying $3,000 a year in, say, energy or utility bills, then it's going to be $4,200. And then the year after that, it's going to be $5,400. And then the year after that, it's going to be, $6,600. And then after that, it's going to be $7,800. Now, in other words, it's going to be $51,000 in total. Now, you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be Elon Musk. You don't have to be, Stephen Hawking or what. You don't have to be, Albert Einstein to figure this out. How can you survive as a middle working class family? You can't. You can't. It's going to break us. It's going to economically bankrupt every single middle working class family. And let me just say this, because this needs to be said. You think the illegals are going to be paying $100 extra every month? No. We subsidize the illegals. You think people on welfare, the underclass that the Democrats constantly support and subsidize because they vote for them, you think what? They're going to be paying the extra $100 every single month and every year $1,200 more? No. You think the uber rich, they can afford it. The Obamas with their big mansion on Martha's Vineyard, as an example, on the vineyard. What's an extra $1,200 a year? They've stolen hundreds of millions of dollars. They don't care. So the ultra rich, the limousine liberals, no problem. They can afford it. The underclass, they don't pay it. So who takes it right on the chin? A you, a me. The law-abiding, hardworking taxpayer. The average Massachusetts family, whether it be working class, middle class, upper middle class, I don't care. This is going to economically destroy us. And let me bare my soul to you like I'm in the confessional. My fear is they're going to make the cost of living so high. By the way, this is what they did in Germany. Germany did exactly what they're doing here in New England. And remember, because Mike said to me, oh, hey, I'm so happy, because Mike lives in New Hampshire. I'm like, Mike, I hate to tell you this, man. This is all over New England. This is a regional pact. It's net zero. It's Connecticut. It's Rhode Island. It's Mass. It's New Hampshire. It's Vermont. It's Maine. So for all of you up there in New Hampshire, you better get out of net zero. Because your energy utility bills are going to explode. So don't think if you live in New Hampshire, somehow this won't affect you. It's going to affect you. So the whole region is getting screwed. Now, they literally did this in Germany, in Deutschland. And it ended up raising energy costs, listen to this, 4 times higher. 4 times higher. And it has broken the German middle class. Germany now has an economic cost of living crisis. It's one of the reasons why the Alternative for Germany is now the #1 party in the country. So what I'm saying is the Europeans have already tried this, or some, and it has been a colossal economic disaster. So go to mass. Look, if you don't get involved, there's nothing we can do. I'm even going to go further. We're planning to do a major rally to audit the state legislature. I'm even willing to do another rally on this very issue. I mean it. But I need your help. Help me help you. You have to defend yourselves. You have to stand up for yourselves. Go to massfiscal.org. massfiscal.org, and press on their call to action. Your name, your email, and tell them, rescind the Global Warming Solutions Act now. Now. And to the stupid Mass GOP, How are you not running on this issue? My God. On this, I got to go. Bye-bye.